What is good, everybody? Welcome to another SB Nation NFL show. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera from Niners Nation. Happy, as always, to be joined by RJ Ochoa from Blogging the Boys and Brandon Lee Gowton from Bleeding Green Nation. Gentlemen, happy holidays. We've got Saturday football. We've got Sunday football, BLG. It's a good weekend for NFL.
Always love Sunday football. Happy holidays. Merry Christmas to all.
2 weeks in a row, we have NFL football 4 out of 5 days. Obviously, last week we had 3 Saturday games. This week we have 3 Sunday games. I kind of like this. It's weird, but I kind of like the bulk of the action happening on Saturday this week. You know what I mean? It will provide for a different but nice and pleasant sort of Sunday, Christmas Day.
I don't know if what we saw last night could be quantified as professional football, but we'll get into the Thursday night game. We'll also preview all the games coming up this weekend. But before we do, I want to remind you that we are brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today. Use code SBNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That is code SBNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. Okay, Thursday night football. Jags, Jets. Jacksonville gets the 19-3 win, their third straight win, and they are now competing for the AFC South title. They're just a half game back at the Tennessee Titans, who aren't going to have Ryan Tannehill. Are the Jags going to win this division, RJ?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Jags are talented. I think they're also benefiting from the division. Obviously, the Colts are king of Fraud Mountain. The Texans are vying for the number 1 overall pick, and the Tennessee Titans, all due respect to Malik Willis, are not going to have to turn to him for the rest of the regular season. And so it's tough. It's tough to see this not breaking the Jaguars' way. On top of that, they're a very good team, kind of finding themselves. Trevor Lawrence kind of having his Joe Burrow second-year glow-up, not quite to the same degree, but it's kind of like, hey, whoa, maybe this guy was kind of good, right? Maybe stats was a little bit too hard on him at the very beginning, towards the start of his NFL career. They have so many weapons. I feel like the Evan Ingram thing was like hiding in plain sight. I mean, he's talented, like they have more going on than a lot of NFL teams. And so they're interesting, but it is a little bit annoying. Like, I feel like we've had the Jaguars overall glow up storyline happen before. So it's just kind of like been there, done that. But, a playoff game in Duval would be a lot of fun to watch. So, hey, good job, Doug Peterson.
Big shout out to my guy, Dougie P, Eagles Super Bowl champion, Doug Peterson, who helped beat the Cowboys last week. The Cowboys, huge, actually had
you will find out later in the show stats that the Cowboys live rent-free in Brandon's mind.
His former team. And yeah, I do think the Jags are going to win the AFC South. Been saying that. The Titans have not been trending in a good direction. Ryan Tannehill out for the year now. Some people might think Malik Willis is an upgrade, maybe in the long term, but I don't think in the short term. Certainly, a more mobile threat, but I think he has a long way to go as a passer, as a rookie, especially given the circumstances he's working with. Jags currently have a 69% chance of making the playoffs. They have just the Texans, that's on the road in week 17, and then it's a big, probably winning in kind of matchup against the Titans in week 18. So that's going to be a really big game. The Titans remaining scheduled, by the way, looking at what they have up next, it's this week. They get the Texans. That'll be in Tennessee. So, Texans have been a little bit friskier lately, but I think the Titans will win that game. Then it's a big game against Dallas on Thursday Night Football in week 17. And then again, they end the season in Jacksonville, where they already did lose to the Jags this year. Yeah. Dougie P, you look at what he did with the Eagles in 2018 and 2019, they were in bad shape, led these comebacks in December. It's Doug-cember, if you will. Trevor Lawrence is in his last 7 start stats. This is for you. 14 touchdowns, 1 interception, 108.2 passer rating. He's playing really well.
Had a nice fumble to start the game off, too. If the Jets could do anything offensively, it might have been a different game. The Jets are a joke. The Jets are so bad. Zach Wilson is so bad. What?
I think that's too much. Like, the Jets aren't a joke. Zach Wilson is a joke, and his jokeness weighs them down. They are a sound football team.
Their offense, they ran the ball 5 times in the first half last night. In a monsoon, the plan was, let's put the game in Zach Wilson's hands. That's bad coaching. They've lost 8 straight in primetime. 19 of their last 25 primetime games they have lost since the butt fumble in 2012. Zach Wilson gets pulled in the third quarter. The crowd erupts, and a practice squad quarterback comes in and actually moves the ball down the field because guess what? The Jags aren't really that good either, but everybody looks good when you play the Jets. The Jets are terrible. Zach Wilson is terrible, and that could be, RJ, the last game Zach Wilson ever starts for the Jets.
I think it is. Brandon and I did a live edition of the NFC East mixtape as Thursday Night Football was starting. And when we finished, we were just talking and kind of wondering out loud, like, who's the team that talks themselves into the former number 2 overall pick, right? Like, at some point, everybody thought this guy was really good. He's the new Mitchell Trubisky, Carson Wentz. Brandon threw the Colts out. That would be so funny if they actually wound up doing it. Also threw the Saints out, but they don't have any serious draft capital because they're already pretty stupid. I still think that's really harsh. I do agree that there is some bad decision making. I saw Connor Hughes tweet this. I think Robert Saleh's done a great job despite me, proclaiming he would be the first head coach fired way back in the offseason. But you can't wait as long as he did to pull Zach Wilson in this game. Like, I recognize now the Jets are sort of out of the playoff picture, but as this game was unfolding, they weren't. You know what I mean? Like that felt like really like cutting your nose off to spite your face, like for whatever reason. Like they had a chance to be a playoff team. They probably don't now after this loss, but he held on way too long to Zach Wilson in this particular game.
Yeah, can we bring him the receipts? Like, when do we get to show him the receipts? Can we do it now?
He already proved himself. Like, we don't get to do this. We don't get to like, oh, well, you proved us right then. Now you're proving it or wrong. Now you're proving us right. Like, he already, Robert Saleh, let's give him his flowers.
His flowers for what? The team looks terrible.
They're 7-7 or 7-8 now. I mean, like they're like you're acting like they're like there are a lot of jokes in the NFL. They have a joke of a quarterback. They had a misevaluation that's going to cost them dearly, but they have a very good team overall.
But they've bungled the quarterback situation, like you just said. Yeah, Zach Wilson's been bad, but they keep throwing him back out there.
But what's the option? Like what like right now today? Like what is the alternative?
Well,
anyone.
They should have put I mean, they honestly probably should have just started Streffler, but okay, if you want to give Zach Wilson one last chance, give him like 2 drives, honestly, or a drive.
I agree with
see
that.
how if he has it early on, okay. But like he has to be on the shortest of short leases. And at this point, there's just no point of playing him. It should be done. It'll only get worse if they play him in terms of if he gets hurt, then you're on like, the books for his contract or like you're doing the injury thing. No, like just keep him on ice. Don't even play him at all. There's no point at this point. He's a bust. You've learned everything you can learn from playing him. Who's the Jets quarterback next year? Do they like make a big push for Lamar? You have to consider, I brought this up before probably, but Joe Douglas, former Ravens executive is now, the GM in New York. They have to do something and they have to do something big, right? Like, I don't know.
Well, Lamar's not going to hit free agency. They're going to franchise him.
Well, yeah. So do they trade for him?
Sign and trade. I mean, like it's possible. What about
James Garoppolo?
Also possible.
Coming off injury, no.
Probably going to be re-signed by the 49ers, though.
At this point, probably.
He's the second best quarterback on the team because Brock Purdy's the best. But, I mean, there was all the comparisons to when Jordan Love came in for Aaron Rodgers on Sunday Night Football. Remember, it was like almost to the day when Aaron Rodgers had to, come in for Brett Favre in that Thursday night game against the Cowboys in 2007. Brett Favre, people forget. Brett Favre played for the Jets. Like that happened. You know what I mean? Like that was a 1-year thing that did happen. What about Aaron Rodgers? Like, couldn't you see that a little bit? I mean, like at this point, all options have to be considered. And I don't think any of us believe in Aaron Rodgers, the football player, to the same degree at this moment. But he's a huge upgrade over Zach Wilson.
Does Aaron Rodgers want to go from one LaFleur to another? I don't know. Can you do that? Is that allowed?
Does Aaron Rodgers want to go anywhere but Green Bay? Yes.
I mean, who knows with that guy?
And what if you're a quarterback? If you're a quarterback, what tools around you do you want? What the Jets have to offer, or what the Packers have to offer?
I don't know. Christian Watson's been coming on, man, and Aaron Jones is really good.
Yeah,
what do the Jets have? Garrett Wilson, okay.
Elijah Moore, Michael Carter as a second option. Breece Hall coming back from injury. That defense. I mean, yeah.
Well, the Jets' defense is definitely better than the Packers. Yeah, but I don't think the Jets' offensive weapons are like that great.
I want to bring something up. I tweeted this, and it was met with responses from all over the spectrum. All I thought about, and I brought this up to you before, both of you, was, well, good job, Jets. You beat the Rams in 2020. That meaningless game that you beat the Rams, you felt super good about yourself. that costed you Trevor Lawrence. You went from Trevor Lawrence to Zach Wilson. And so, like, I get it. Like, these are professional athletes. They don't tank, blah, blah. This is the cost. Like, we literally saw the cost in front of the Jets' eyes. Like, they had to watch an alternate reality in front of them. I know you bag on Trevor Lawrence all the time, Stats, but, like, was it worth it? Was it worth winning that Rams game for the Jets?
He's definitely better than Zach Wilson. I'll say that.
I mean, what, like, again, like, I'm not saying, oh, this proves tanking is the way to go, but like Brandon, if Doug Peterson, your guy, Doug Sember, if he doesn't tank week 17 against, the football team at the time, Devontae Smith is not an Eagle. You know what I mean? Like it's worth it. Like, it sounds, obtuse to say, but it is.
And then they don't have the Saints pick this year because, like, there was also the trade back, so they got number 6 in the 2021 draft, and then they traded back from that.
They got 12 first, right? Oh, no, you're right.
Yeah,
and
they traded back. No, they traded back to 12. They picked
Right,
up an extra first from the Dolphins, right? So, yeah, so there was like a huge trickle down effect from that trade, which has, like, given them a lot of more assets to work with down the road. So, yeah, one game like that. And I get to your point, RJ. Yeah, you can't. It's not on the players. The players can't go out and be expected to not try, but you can have management and coaching decisions where you're maybe playing more practice squad guys and not playing dead end veterans, but guys with upside and who are younger and probably not good, but maybe at least have potential and probably are going to help you lose.
As long as they base the draft order on record, it's always to your benefit to lose once you're eliminated from playoff contention. Like, and I know people get mad when you say it, but I mean, these are the facts.
Unless you're one of the team like the Rams this year in the
top
or
the
5
Saints.
Because you gave your pick away.
Yeah.
Although there still is benefit to losing in terms of at least your second round pick will be higher now.
Is there anything?
Go ahead, Seth.
Is there anything else you want to say about this game before we move on?
I just wanted to ask you both a question about the Jaguars. Do we think that Jacksonville Tennessee game in Week 18 is the Sunday night flex game? Because you said it, Brandon. Like, that's probably a win and in. Like, that's generally like the vibe they go for. And like, what was the last not Thursday night football primetime game in Jacksonville?
I don't know, but yeah, that's a good call by you. I'm trying to look at all the other games. I don't know what else would be off the top of my head.
Maybe Baltimore and Cincinnati, if that's
okay.
But they're both probably going to be in. I mean,
who's quarterbacking for Baltimore?
That's true.
I think Lamar will be back by that point, but we'll see. One last thing I had is, who is the coach of the year right now? Is it Doug?
Kyle Shanahan.
Okay.
Next question.
I think Brian Dable breathed some life back into his cause last week, like, because the win came on national television too. Doug, like, we talk about narrative. Doug has a Super Bowl ring. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, oh, like, he's a good coach. He's supposed to do this. Like, Brian Dable.
He also had the lowest bar to overcome. Like,
but that's also crazy. He also had the highest mountain to climb in terms of he took over the worst team in the NFL 2 years in a row. Like, that's not nothing.
I don't know that that's fair to say.
I don't think Doug should be by far and away in the favorite, but I almost think no one is by far and away the favorite. It's a tough field to kind of sort through.
You both are unfair to him, but like, I don't think Kevin O'Connell gets enough recognition in this capacity either. Like,
the only coach. Yeah, he's become the only coach to have as good as record as he
won his division. He won his division with 3 weeks to go. Like, as a first time head coach, like on the surface, like that
every
merits
metric
consideration.
indicates that team is not as
no,
good
but
as
if you're gonna Mr. Fantastic stretch to get Doug Peterson involved here, like, Kevin O'Connell at least deserves to be in the conversation.
Took over the team again that was worst in the league 2 years in a row. Has them as division winners.
Right, the Vikings were a stalwart of greatness over the last few years. Kevin O'Connell took
in
over.
The chat. Obviously,
no, Dan Campbell. No.
Why is that a no?
The first 7 games of the season happened. I hate when we do this. The same thing with Brian Flores when the Dolphins were 1-7, and then they got back to 500, and people are like, he's the coach of the year. Well, what happened for half the year? Like, they were dreck. So you know where Dan Campbell's at? The middle. He's at 0. He's at the baseline right now. That's it. Coach of the year.
This would never happen because of the narrative and stuff like that. But I think Zach Taylor has been really impressive, at least more impressive than I anticipated. Like, in the spirit of like, who has really impressed you, who's done an amazing job, I think Zach Taylor deserves a lot of credit.
Especially when you look at the history of teams like that lost the Super Bowl, and I think usually things go by the wayside for them. So not just him, but the Bengals as a whole. I think they're having probably a more impressive season than they're getting credit for, just because it's hard to bounce back like that.
Very 2017 Atlanta Falcons, who lost the worst Super Bowl of all time. Then were a playoff team. They won a playoff game against the mighty Sean McVay. So,
why'd you say the mighty?
because that's how people treat him. Like he's infallible and he's the greatest coach of all time.
He's the next Belichick, baby.
I mean, he won the Super Bowl and then has literally had the worst follow-up to it that any Super Bowl winner has ever had.
So, yeah, okay, but this is the only bad year he's ever had.
Well, he also had the lowest scoring output in Super Bowl history.
Okay, like he was in the Super Bowl that year.
Lowest scoring output
so
ever.
What? That's 1 game.
Points. That's pathetic.
Okay, it was okay.
As an offensive innovator and offensive genius.
That guy, you can't be like, this guy is the next Belichick. That guy does not get that kind of hype.
I never said he was the next Belichick.
But that's why I said mighty. Like that, it's a dig at the over amplifying of. Right. He's a very good coach, but he is over amplified to be made to be one of the greatest coaches of all time. That's my qualm.
I mean, you're knocking him because after they went all in to win a Super Bowl, they've had a bad year where their quarterback's been banged up, and because he didn't score a lot of points in the Super Bowl, the second time the first time he got there.
In 2018, people were literally saying Doug Peterson didn't deserve credit for the Super Bowl, and it was all Frank Reich. 1 year after winning the Super Bowl.
Well, that's crazy. That's not Sean McVay's fault.
But
my
Sean
point
McVay
isn't driven by. My point isn't driven out of some bias towards my team, the way Brandon's is. But look at a coach in Sean McVay's division. Kyle Shanahan. You said Sean McVay's lost all these pieces around him. You can't look at Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan doesn't need arms or legs or feet or toes or whatever. Kyle Shanahan will make it work no matter what. When has Sean McVay ever done that? Oh, Sean McVay's a wonderful head coach when everything is perfect around him. When he has the best defensive player in the NFL,
healthiest team in the league for 4 years running.
He cannot overcome the slightest bit of adversity. He is
Sean
not
McVay
the best head coach in his own division.
Around Kyle Shanahan, if you look at their career record,
now you have bias towards your own team as well. Kyle Shanahan is maybe the second best coach in the NFL.
I think Kyle Shanahan's a great coach, but Sean McVay never has a year. Kyle Shanahan has multiple 10-loss seasons. That doesn't happen to Sean McVay this year.
He did early in his career, but things have stabilized since 2019, have they not? And in 2020, they were the most injured team. So I understand that that's not something that he's always overcome. But for the most part, as he's gotten longer in the tooth in the NFL, Kyle Shanahan has found a way. Sean McVay has regressed as he's gotten longer in the tooth in the NFL. And again, he gets hoisted up as one of the best. He's not a top 5 coach in the NFL today.
He's regressed. This is his only bad season. His worst year before this was 9-7.
And they missed the playoffs. I mean,
oh my goodness.
People are oh, we got to fire. Now I'll show my bias. We got to fire Mike McCarthy because he doesn't make the NFC Championship game. But Sean McVay can be this bad coach and win 4 games and whatever. But he had a cute little one drive with Baker Mayfield. So let's throw him his flowers once again.
I feel like you guys are just ignoring everything, but let's move on. We got to do our lock of the week, which is brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today. Use code SBNFL for a special offer when you sign up. Again, SBNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. BLG was the only member of the show to get a win in his lock of the week last week with the Bengals -3.5 over Tampa Bay. RJ, you and I took the loss. BLG, you're 10-5 on the year. RJ is 6-7-2. I am 4-9-2. Ugh. Where are you going this week, Brandon?
I've clinched a regular season lock of the week standings win. Of course, we will continue into the playoffs. I have a good lead.
The Sean McVay special.
Season. And 10-5. I've gotten 10 of my 15 lock of the week's correct, whereas RJ has only gotten 6, which is going to be relevant, and you'll see why in a bit. I am taking the Philadelphia Eagles outright against the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I will take the points for the sake of the standings here in the conversation, but I do feel like the Eagles are going to go down to Dallas. It doesn't matter that Jalen Hurts isn't playing. I mean, there's a drop-off. Don't get me wrong. But I'm saying they can still win with Gardner Minshew, who I think is one of the better backup quarterbacks in the NFL. I think the Eagles have a good mismatch in their favor, as RJ likes me saying that the Cowboys have a big issue right now at cornerback 2 across from Trayvon Diggs, and the Eagles have 2 wide receiver 1s in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, and I think the Eagles are going to take big advantage of that. And I also think the Eagles can get their running game going enough if they need to, because Miles Sanders could have a big game with Leighton Vander Esch out and Jonathan Hankins on IR. So overall, I think it's going to be a close game, and I like the points, even if the Eagles do end up losing, but I think they're going to win, and they're going to clinch the number 1 seed in Dallas with Gardner Minshew leading the way and paying tribute to his former coach, the late, great Mike Leach.
RJ?
It's my turn. That would sound like a lot of copium. Like, oh, I don't know. Gardner Minshew is like, what? I don't know what evidence there is to support that he's one of the best backup quarterbacks in the NFL. At this point, I understand and agree that Devontae Smith and AJ Brown are very talented, but it's almost as if a change at the quarterback position would seemingly impact the greatness that they're able to achieve on a per game basis. The Dallas Cowboys with Dak Prescott are a better team than the Philadelphia Eagles with Gardner Minshew. That's what this comes down to. I mean, he limits them. He does. I mean, the Philadelphia Eagles with Jalen Hurts are one of the best teams in the NFL, arguably the best team in the NFL. This is a sizable drop off. And so I've said, Brandon and I have said the same things to one another a lot this week. We've done a lot of shows and pieces of content together. But the what's at stake for the Eagles is obviously much greater than what's at stake for the Cowboys, the number one seed, the division. Those are the most high mark things that you can achieve in the regular season. I do think, despite that, the Cowboys are playing for a little bit more pride, having lost in embarrassing fashion last week to the Jacksonville Jaguars. This is, I don't know if I've seen the stats, in all likelihood, the last home game of the season for the Cowboys. They have 2 road ones to finish it up, and obviously will likely be a wild card. If you care about the Christmas Eve factor, whatever, that's something that every team in the NFL is dealing with this week. I think the Cowboys want to stand tall and want to keep their season alive a little bit longer. If they win this game, obviously the NFC East is not clinched, at least until next week. And if Dallas were to win next Thursday night, the game we'll recap on next week's show, then Philadelphia could lock Dallas into the 5 seed with a win next Sunday against the New Orleans
just to be
Saints.
clear, your pick.
Well, Dallas. I mean, you let Brandon ramble on and on and on. So I thought those were the rules. I thought that was allowable, but I see that there's a bias here. I'm taking the Cowboys.
He's just saying, like, so this is the first time this has happened in the SB.
I thought it was obvious. I'm sorry that you guys can't see the forest between the trees or beyond the trees, whatever the expression is. But yes, I'm taking the Cowboys. Laying
you really
4.5.
beat yourself in the foot on that one.
Laying 4.5 because Gardner Minshew's a cool dude, but if he didn't have a mustache, people wouldn't hype him up the way that they do.
I'll give my thoughts on the game a little later. My pick this week, and look, it's really not worth much, but we're doing this, so I'm going to give it my best shot. I'll take Cincinnati -3 over the Patriots, and maybe I'm a little biased because I talked to Tom Kern of NBC Sports Boston earlier this week. I just think the Patriots are a mess. The best thing about them was their situational awareness, and that seems to have completely disappeared. Mac Jones is like openly calling out coaches. Belichick's calling out Mac Jones in the press conference. We didn't attempt a Hail Mary because he can't throw it that far. I just don't like the vibes with New England right now, and Cincinnati is rolling. So I'll take Cincy. It's only -3, and I really like everything that's going on with Cincinnati right now. Their defense is playing well. Joe Burrow seems to have found something like he did last year down the stretch. So give me Cincinnati -3.
I like that pick by you stats. The Bengals are surging, and the Patriots, as I pointed out before, have not. Well, now with the Jets having not a winning record, the Patriots have not beaten a team this year with a winning record.
Oof, brutal. All right, let's move on to our same game parlay. We were terrible last week for Giants and Commanders. None of us got our pick right. So BLG, you and I are tied at 6-9, and RJ is at 4-11. I'm going to go first in this one. We're going Raiders Steelers. I'll take Devontae Adams over 74.5 receiving yards in this game. Waller is back. I think that's going to open up opportunities for Devontae Adams. And I have no faith in the Steelers right now. I really don't. Like, Mike Tomlin's never had a losing year. Like, they're not that good. So I'm going to go with Devontae Adams. He's the best thing about the Raiders. And I just hope they do the smart thing and feed him, because all they got to do is give him opportunities and he'll get over 74.5.
I am going to go with a Najee Harris anytime touchdown scorer bet. He's found the end zone in 8 of his 14 games this year, including 5 times in the last 5 games for the Steelers. Raiders have allowed the 3rd most fantasy football points to running backs, so they are vulnerable on the ground, certainly. And they also have allowed 16 total touchdowns to running backs this season. So a little bit more than 1 per game, or at least will be at this point. No, yeah, because they played 15 games. Okay, math. So yes, I think Najee Harris is going to get into the end zone at least 1 time in this game.
I want to give a shout out to Rob on Twitter at RVEC, VECC, the number 1. So RVEC1. Rob sent me a DM last week on Twitter, actually filed our same game parlay. Didn't hit. So Rob, if you do it this week, we studied up a little bit more. We're hoping to make you some money. That being said, I'm going with the lowest of low hanging fruit possible. I'm taking Josh Jacobs plus 110 as an anytime scorer. Brandon, you mentioned fantasy, talking about Najee Harris. Josh Jacobs has been kind of a fantasy hero, obviously, all season long for a lot of people. This is the fantasy playoffs. Like, it just kind of feels like, like that's due, right? Like you could just kind of see your timeline this week. Like, that's Josh Jacobs has brought you this far. Look at him. He's carrying you into your championship round. And kind of, you get those players every now and then, like that, those kind of vibes, like Jonathan Taylor a year ago, whatever. So Josh Jacobs, get it done, please. We have 3 more opportunities to hit this in the regular season. And if we miss, that's pretty embarrassing for you two.
Come on. We have to get one. So just to recap, Devontae Adams over 74.5 receiving yards, and Najee Harris and Josh Jacobs anytime touchdown scorers. All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we can rip through all the games. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's some clinching scenarios. We'll get to those as well on the SB Nation NFL show. Back here on the SB Nation NFL show, we will give you our thoughts on every game, unless one of us gets zapped. If that happens, you cannot offer any thoughts on the game. You can only give your pick. There we go. That scares me every single time. There are multiple clinching scenarios, but I have a policy, and I know you guys are probably going to hate it. I only give the clinching scenario if it's 1 or 2 things that need to happen. Beyond that, I think it's way too hard to follow along. Stupid. You can figure it out after the game. So the Bills can clinch the AFC East with a win or a Dolphins loss, and the Eagles can clinch the NFC East and the number 1 seed with a win. Let's start with the early games tomorrow. Giants in Minnesota to take on the Vikings, BLG. Minnesota giving 4 after their biggest comeback in NFL history last week.
Yeah, the Giants, I thought, had a more impressive win. I thought what they did against the Commanders was really surprising. I was a fool last week to say that they were the lock of the week straight up, regardless of the spread. The Commanders were, that is, to beat the Giants. Because Commanders had a huge advantage. They had a bye week. They had 3 weeks to prepare for the Giants. They're healthier than that Giants team. I was really surprised. And that's, certainly you can put a feather in Brian Daboll's cap for that kind of win. I think that is a win that the Giants might be able to build on here in a game where I think these teams have overachieved. I like the points a little bit more. And the Vikings are frauds, man. And I will continue to say it, and I will continue to believe it. They did not even cover against the Colts. Yes, they came back and won. But they didn't even cover against that pathetic team that RJ was like, oh, they're absolutely going to cover. And they didn't. So I'm going to take the Giants +4 and to win outright, but also I'll take the +4.
The nerve of the Vikings to not cover after falling down 33-0. But the fact that they won that game, not impressive enough. Look, it's only possible to come down from 33 points if you fall down by 33 points, and that's obviously an important factor here. But the Vikings get no credit for this. I mean, or for this kind of thing. The Vikings came back from down 17 against the Buffalo Bills, and it was like, oh man, what a bunch of frauds. Meanwhile, the Jaguars come back from down 17 to the Cowboys. It's like, oh, greatest team ever. Like we can give the Vikings love. We can give the Vikings love. We can give the Vikings credit. Like I don't know what. Like all this is people trying to confirm priors on the Vikings. Their offense was dealing in the second half. Their offense was on absolute fire. And yes, they didn't cover, but they should have. I mean, they had a turnover that they didn't get that led to a pick 6 immediately after for Kirk Cousins. That doesn't happen if the official does his job. They had a defensive touchdown taken away from them that doesn't happen if the official does his job. And so, yes, I mean, the Vikings are victims in that sense. They are a little bit fraudulent in some senses. Whoa, what a big shocker. No NFL team is perfect. I do think that what the Giants did last week was very impressive. We already talked about that a lot. I thought the fourth quarter performance by Saquon Barkley, this is a weird way to put it, but was maybe like the finest quarter that a running back has had this season in the NFL. Like he looked like the most unstoppable version of himself in that quarter specifically. That being said, I'll take the Vikings. I don't think they're the greatest team of all time, but I do think that they are generally disrespected.
I feel like this is a classic, like old school, new school thinking, right? A lot of the newer analytics and stuff like that we look at say the Vikings are frauds, but yet none of that matters because here they are at 11-3. Like, and so I feel like that is the battle that goes back and forth. Like, it doesn't matter if all the advanced metrics say they're not very good. The only thing that matters at the end of the day are wins and losses. Like, if they hold up the Super Bowl trophy, are we going to still be saying like, hey, they're frauds? Like
people will, because they hate the Vikings. They hate Kirk Cousins.
I don't think we have to worry about that. I don't think that's going to happen.
Okay, but like they have a chance to be the number 1 seed in the NFC. Like they are winning these games, and I get it. I agree that I don't think they're as good as their record, record, but no, the games count. They really are 11-3. I'll take the Vikings. The Giants are not very good. Okay. The only reason they won last week is because the officials decided to not throw one flag and throw another flag at the end of that game. They don't impress me at all. I think that Brian Daboll has done the best he could with what is a terrible roster. And now I think it's just, had a nice season, Giants. You'll figure it out next year. I'll take the Vikings, and I will give the 4 points. Next up, Seattle in Kansas City to take on the Chiefs. The Chiefs burned me last week in my lock of the week. RJ, Chiefs giving 10.
Yeah, Chiefs needed overtime to beat the Texans, but not a peep about it this week. That's a very interesting discussion point. You guys
were the
came in
Chiefs
here
playing that game?
Only a really terrible team would
were the
need
Chiefs
the very
playing that
last
game?
moments
Where were
to
the Chiefs
beat
playing that
the
game?
Houston Texans. The
Where were
Cowboys
the
did not
Chiefs
need
playing
overtime.
that game?
And in fact, the Chiefs gave the ball up in overtime.
And the Cowboys
It's my turn to speak, Brandon. Thank you very much.
Zapped. No, it's not, because you just got zapped. And the Chiefs were playing in Houston, whereas the Cowboys, you're still talking. Okay, good. The Cowboys were playing at home, and they should have lost. The Chiefs were not at a point where they were going to lose that game. We've seen these Chiefs do this. They're really bad at covering the spread. They kind of don't, turn it on for full 4 quarters. The Cowboys should have lost that game, and it was much different than that you're trying to make it seem, because that's what you do. And that was probably the best, most satisfying use of the zap. I just want to keep talking forever now. Anyway, it's tough. I'm going to take the points here, not because I think the Seahawks are great and because they're not trending in a good way. But again, the Chiefs just aren't really good at covering the spread. Part of that is because they usually get these big spreads and they're hard to cover. So I will take the Seahawks to cover as they continue to try to stay alive and battle for a wild card spot. But the Chiefs will win the game.
I have to say, BLG, I kind of agree with RJ. If we're going to ding the Cowboys for struggling with the Texans, why shouldn't we ding the Chiefs? I think that's fair. And the Chiefs have an element of too cool for school. They turn the ball over a lot. They have a negative turnover differential this year. Patrick Mahomes has to drag them kicking and screaming to a lot of victories. I don't think they're as good as they look. The 10 points, I really don't like that number. I don't think Seattle is playing very well right now either. I think that defenses have kind of adjusted to Geno Smith a little bit, and he hasn't. We don't know if he's going to be able to make that counter punch just yet. But I think 10 points. It's in Kansas City. Yeah, I guess I'll take the Chiefs and give the points, but I don't feel totally comfortable about it. But I think RJ's point is fair. Why shouldn't we ding both? It's either ding both or don't ding either one.
I mean, you can say that the Chiefs should have won more comfortably and covered the spread. I think that's fair, especially in the context the Chiefs did also not cover against the Broncos last week. And that's kind of, not the best thing. But again, I want to make it clear that the Cowboys were in much greater danger of losing the game than the Chiefs ever were.
The Chiefs were in overtime, though. They could have lost the game on any one play.
But I mean, no. I mean, were they trailing?
Well, if it's overtime, it's tied. So literally if you throw a pick six,
trailing, were they about to go down to 10 points? Were the Chiefs about to go down 10 points in the game?
They were trailing, just to answer that question.
Okay, they trailed by 1 point at halftime versus 10 points.
Question.
They were about to be 10 points down in the fourth quarter. I'm just saying it's a false equivalency thing. The Cowboys were way worse off in that game.
I like just digging both, so I'm going to do that and feel good about it. Let's go to Carolina. The Lions are in town. Everybody's favorite team. The Panthers are getting 2.5 points. RJ, we'll start with you.
Yeah. This is a keep showing us game for the Lions. And I don't think the Lions have to prove anything to us. So I don't mean to paint it that way. You have to meet some sort of standard here, but do it Lions. The road is laid out for you. Everything is working out in your favor. So keep the party going. Everyone is rooting for you. I think it was Pete who said it on Monday Football Monday. Who isn't a fan of the Lions right now? Okay. I recognize you stats are not a fan of the hype. I do think that Dan Campbell deserves consideration for Coach of the Year. That does have some Dolphins vibes from a year ago, to your point, stats of starting off in this insane hole. But you also said, at the end of the day, if you win the Super Bowl, who cares? I mean, you had the wins and losses. At the end of the day, if the Lions are a playoff team, who cares about the rocky road that they took to get there if they're ultimately in? I would love to see that happen. I was right last week. You guys fell for the Panthers. Oh man, they're going to go beat Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. No, I mean, the Panthers, I would love to see them win the NFC South, to be very clear, as somebody whose team is likely going to visit that division winner. But it just isn't going to happen. I will take the Lions, and I feel pretty good about it.
I will also take the Lions, who are surging, and I think could certainly be a pretty frisky, interesting playoff team if they do end up getting a wild card spot, which it feels like things are trending that way. It's not a lock by any means. 538 currently has them at 40% entering week 16. So they clearly have work to do, and they could certainly benefit from some help with the Giants, Commanders kind of falling out of the NFC playoff picture there and the wild card spots. But yeah, I like the way the Lions are trending, and only 2.5. Like, it's pretty. If they win the game, they're probably going to cover that. So I will take it.
This is the easiest game that the Lions have left on their schedule, right? Because after this week, they play the Bears, who have become a much more difficult team to play lately, and the Packers in Lambeau. And the last thing you want to see if you're a Lions fan is Jared Goff outside in December. I don't think that's a good look. You've got to, this is a handle your business game for Detroit. If you're going to be the playoff team that everybody thinks you are, you cannot lose to the Panthers. I know that you're in Carolina. I don't care. You have to win this game. I just think that their offense is too good for Carolina's defense. So I will take the Lions and I will give the points. Next up, the Bills are in Chicago to take on those frisky Bears. Chicago is getting 8 points in this game. I actually think this could be kind of a fun, interesting watch because you got a couple quarterbacks that could do some crazy stuff out there, BLG.
I don't think so. I think the Bears defense is not great, and I think the Bills are going to have their way with them. So everyone talks about Justin Fields. He did have a big highlight against the Eagles. I'll give him credit for that. That was a crazy play to break out of a Hassan Reddick sack. At the same time, he also takes a lot of sacks and holds on to the ball for a long time. And I think he's going to give the Bills chances to get to him. And I think the Bills will actually cover this fairly easily. And they're used to playing in the cold. It's pretty cold in Chicago. Bills know what that's all about. So yeah, give me the Bills.
The Bears defense, who had 2 interceptions off of Jalen Hurts last week. I love the Bills, and they're so much fun. I love Justin Fields. I don't think this game will be close. I'm just ready to see the Bills at the playoffs. Like I'm tired of this like strenuous, like it feels so intense, and like that makes for fun football. Obviously, Saturday night was amazing, but it's just like I'm kind of nervous for them. Like I just feel like just get there, like get to the playoffs. Like this whole year has been about like getting back the coin toss, blah blah blah. So don't work. I mean, like I know they're not like motivated or worried about covering or anything like that. Josh Allen is so reckless in a beautiful way. As a quarterback. And so I'm constantly and continually worried. We don't talk enough about we talk so much about the Eagles and the 1 seed. We don't talk about the Bills. Like the Chiefs are right on their heels. Like they have the 1 seed. And so they have to obviously in all likelihood win out to win it. And so go get this win, keep your foot on the gas, clinch the AFC East. And let's get to the divisional round.
Any chance of a letdown here? They're coming off the Miami game. They've got Cincinnati in Cincinnati next week. Is there any chance the Bills kind of just look past Chicago a little bit?
Trap game. Probably not, though.
8 points. Yeah, I guess I'll go with the Bills and I'll give the points. Although I agree, Josh Allen, like, he is a little reckless. He has a little self-destruct in him. Like, I know we always like to compare Mahomes and Josh Allen, but I feel like Mahomes protects the ball better than Allen.
He protects himself better than Allen. You know what I mean? Like Allen, again, like it's a beautiful thing. Like, and it's part of his game. And so like, you know, you can't like hindsight, like, oh, he shouldn't be that physical, but like, dude, like the Super Bowl is not won in week 15 on that Saturday night against the Dolphins. You know what I mean? Like, we don't need you soaring over the goal line in the most like intense physical combat of all time. Now they won the game. So like, it was obviously worth it, but Josh Allen is a special player. And so I really want to see him in the playoffs.
That's why he's just going to be beloved, though, by those Buffalo fans forever, just because he does put it all on the line.
But like
every
some of
single
it is
week.
unnecessary. Like I talked about the Vikings comeback. Like he threw a pick in the fourth quarter in that game, and then he's like chasing down, Patrick Peterson and trying to like punch the ball. It's like, dude, like understand your worth, understand your importance. Like I mean, granted, they did lose that game, but like understand when it's worth it and when it doesn't make sense. Like you don't make a business decision, but like look at the big picture here.
Let's move on to Bengals and Patriots in New England. New England is getting 3 points in the game. I gave my thoughts earlier. BLG, where do you come down on this one?
Yeah, again, the Patriots have not defeated a team with a winning record this season. The vibes are certainly bad. My Bill Belichick / coaching overall probably is overrated kind of thing is aging incredibly well, as stats will not want to admit. I think your interview with Tom Curran, Stats, was really good. And I think he actually said it really well. I think Belichick was very important and deserves a lot more credit earlier on in the Brady Belichick run. I think that was where he was at his best, and then between personnel issues, which you will admit stats were a big issue, Belichick, among other things, kind of have been an undoing. And like RJ likes to say last year with Urban Meyer, that that was like the one thing that we could actually everyone agree, everyone. It's hard to get people on the same page on sometimes the most basic things in life in general, but also in the NFL. And it's just like, what are the Patriots doing with Matt Patricia and Joe Judge? And just the hubris, like just imagine like the idea that those two guys were the very best candidates the Patriots possibly, the New England Patriots, like the allure of being able, to go to that organization and work with Bill Belichick. They could, cast this big net and probably get a bunch of qualified candidates. And no, this is who they pick. And it's just pathetic. And this is the undoing of a lot of teams. It's not that they're dumb. It's not that Belichick is a fraud because like he's actually an idiot. He's a fraud, or at least is more fraudulent recently because there's so much hubris here. And it's all being it's leading to an undoing of the Patriots, and I love to see it. And the Bengals are surging, as I said earlier, and they're ahead in the AFC North right now. They have a big game against the Ravens, as RJ mentioned, coming up in Week 18, I believe. So the stakes are high, and they need to keep winning. Bengals by 3.
I agree with your hubris take, Brandon. I also think I'm sure there's like a poignant expression for this, but like nostalgia is such an enemy of NFL teams and of people in general, like chasing what we once had, chasing the good times, chasing the golden days, whatever. This isn't about the Patriots, but I read a Zach Kiefer article in The Athletic this week talking about whether or not Chris Ballard should return to the Colts next season. And there was a line from, I think, Jim Irsay, who said he's got some Bill Polian-esque qualities to him. So it's like why do we like, you know what I mean? Like why do
hire Bill
always,
Polian?
Like, but you get what I'm saying? Like every time any NFL fan or sports fan, whatever, like references like a great player, coach, whatever, like in their team's past, like it's just the dumbest thing. And so like the Matt Patricia thing is like a symptom of that. I was personally willing to kind of see it, right? Like, okay, like, there was a lot of success there. It's not like the Bill Polian example that was a long time ago, right? Like we're not far removed from the New England Patriots being a great team with.
What was Patricia's last game with the Patriots before he left?
I mean, I understand
the Super Bowl 52. It was like terrible.
Right. But like that doesn't undo all of the games before that. But you're right. But so I was willing to give it a chance. But yeah, like this is Robert Saleh with Zach Wilson. Like, you should have hit the ejector seat a long time ago. The Patriots are like, we talk about this with the Saints a lot, right? Like you're about to return to like who you were prior to Tom Brady, like an obscure, irrelevant NFL franchise. That we're on the verge of that happening.
And people, I feel like, don't acknowledge that, or maybe they're just too young to remember. I live in Connecticut. By the way,
just in case it wasn't obvious.
I live in Connecticut. There were no Patriot fans here before Tom Brady. I am telling you, they did not exist. And I agree. Like, it's over. It's just over now.
Boston's like a basketball town, right? Or a baseball town, either way.
Yes.
It's never been a football town.
It's an incredible run. The greatest dynasty in the history of the National Football League. But it's over now. I'll take the Bengals, and I will give the 3 points. Next up, Texans at Titans. Titans -3. They're fighting for the AFC South, RJ. Texans have played better lately. No Ryan Tannehill in this one. Where are you going?
Yeah, I can't be zapped this time. Texans showing some grit, some fight, some respectability.
I mean, stats could zap you, or Steven can zap you if they want.
That's true.
Well, that's true, but I can't be zapped out of narcissism, at least, like last time. I mean, but the Texans are doing it right? Like playing well, establishing good vibes, but like getting the loss. We talked about the Jets and Trevor Lawrence. That's why. I mean, I joked about when they lost.
Elegant tank is the way.
Right. That's a good way to put. I joked, like, did they order the code red on the goal line possession against the Cowboys?
Battle red.
I think the Texans win. I'm kind of here. I somewhat jokingly, somewhat seriously predicted the Texans to win the AFC South when we did that. And a lot of that was born out of the idea that this division sucks. And that was proven to be true, certainly. They have hung with the Cowboys, hung with the Chiefs. What is there to believe, or like, how can we not believe that they could possibly win this game? So I haven't seen it from Malik Willis. None of us have at the NFL level. So show it to us here and impress us. But I'll take the Texans. Why not?
I was tempted to do that just because I think Malik Willis, again, is a long way to go. And the Titans' vibes are just not trending in a good direction. But as I excellent producer Steven Serta points out here, the last 4 times Derrick Henry has taken the field against the Texans, he's rushed for at least 210 yards. And yeah, I remember him having a big game against Houston earlier this year. That's a big reason why I still can't take the Texans. The Texans are really bad. I know the Titans are also not trending in a great way, but they're at home and they still have Derrick Henry. So and Malik Willis probably can run around on them a little bit. So I will take the Titans to cover.
The Texans almost won in Nashville last year. Remember when Tennessee was like, obviously about to clinch the 1 seed as we all saw, but they almost pulled it off here a year ago.
I feel like if Mike Vrabel is as good
they
as
did.
coaches,
I'm sorry, Stats. They won in Nashville and almost beat them in Houston. My bad.
You got to win this game if you're Mike Vrabel, right? Like things are not going good. We need you to steady the ship. You can still, maintain your control over the division. You win the game. You're still a half game up on the Jags. Now you have to play them later in the year, but you cross that bridge when you get to it. But find a way, Vrabel, backup quarterback. Like, yeah, great. Give Derrick Henry 40 carries, whatever it takes. You cannot lose this game when your grip on the division is, you got it by a fingernail right now. The Texans stink. You cannot lose this game. And I don't think Mike Vrabel will. I'll take Tennessee. I'll give the points. I know Malik Willis is, a huge unknown, but even if he just runs around back there and does most of the work with his legs, I think that that's going to be enough in this one game to get them over the hump. So I'll take the Titans. Falcons in Baltimore to play the Ravens. Baltimore is giving 6.5 points. No Lamar Jackson in this one. I do not like the vibes in Baltimore right now, BLG, especially as someone had picked them to be over 9.5 wins this year. Come on, Baltimore, get it done.
Yeah, I mean, this is like when you look at the big picture of the Ravens right now, again, is like collapsing out of the AFC North. Is that going to be what precedes the big Lamar contract, extension? Is that what's going to happen? And maybe they don't give him the contract extension. Maybe they just tag him and keep him on that. But and then they're going to do that another year. They're going to play it out another year. I mean, it's an option, but it just feels like, either you want him or you don't. So decide. And, there's a disadvantage to having him back on the tag. It limits what you can kind of do around him. And hey, that's been a big criticism by everyone is like they haven't done enough to help him.
Mm-hmm.
And if you sign him to the extension. So they're just in a weird spot to me. I really do not like picking this game because I have kind of just made it a rule that I cannot bet on the Falcons because it's the least surprising thing when they let you down. But 6.5 points is so much for an offense that's not doing a lot right now. I will take the Ravens to win the game, but I will take the Falcons to cover the spread and then probably regret it later.
I'll take the Ravens. I'll lay the points. I don't feel great about it. I don't have anything to really add. The thing I trust the most in this game is John Harbaugh. That's it. That's all I have. I don't have anything else. So I'm fine being wrong because if it involves not believing in the Falcons, I'm fine getting burned in that sense. I'm comfortable with that.
Sure.
I don't believe in the Falcons at all, but I just feel like this Ravens offense they're not structured to beat anybody by 6.5 points. It always comes down to Justin Tucker from 54 yards away, and then he kicks a ball that would be good from 84 yards. The Lamar thing is really weird because I feel like as long as his future is sort of up in the air, and I don't know the specifics of the injury, so I want to say that first and foremost, but because he doesn't have a long-term contract in place, it's smart by Lamar to not rush back on the field quickly at all. Whereas if you had a long-term contract in place, maybe he's more willing to try and gut it out. And when you're banged up like this, obviously you want your former MVP to be in there instead of Tyler Huntley. No disrespect to Huntley, but I just don't know how that is playing into Lamar and his situation. I just think that's dicey.
It's tough though, because you need to set yourself up for playoff success, which we've documented many times he has not had. And, if he comes back and he plays through it and he gets to the Ravens to the AFC North, then okay, you get to host a home playoff game. You like your chances there, but if you're playing on the road because you're a wild card, that's tough.
I don't think he has to do that with regards to the contract. You're right with regards to legacy and whatever, but what he has to do with regards to his contract is get to the offseason healthy. Even if Lamar doesn't play another snap over the rest of the season and he gets to the offseason, he's getting the richest contract in NFL history.
No, he's not. From the Ravens, they're going to pay him if he doesn't
maybe
play
not the Ravens, but he can certainly command it. If Deshaun Watson can command it, then Lamar Jackson can absolutely command it.
If Jimmy Garoppolo can command the richest contract, which he got, he got that for 5 games. Like Lamar certainly will.
Think about I'm not at all equating the two, but like think about what Kirk got when Kirk hit the open market. Like if you're a franchise quarterback, you hit the open market, you are in all likelihood
hitting the open market.
Yeah, he's gonna.
He's come this far.
A couple of years. Eventually, he will, just not this offseason.
Right.
All right, so I'll take the Falcons and the points, even though I think the Ravens are going to win the game. Last of the early games, Saints and Browns. I'll just give mine quick. I hate the Browns. I will forever as long as Deshaun Watson is there. Go Saints.
I'll take the Saints too. I mean, the Browns, squeaked one out against the Texans and obviously beat the Ravens last week, and the team we just trashed. The Saints have an ability to like kind of get it together. I mean, and I use that very loosely. Like they kind of held it together against the Bucs before it all collapsed. They kind of held it together last week against the Falcons. I understand these are meaningless things, but the Browns are not a great team. They're obviously not a great organization, to your point, in all of our point stats. I'll take the Saints. They're in contention for the NFC South. And if they win that division, man, like what is their pick right now, Brandon? Like 9 or 10? I mean, it goes from there to like 28 or whatever. Like that would be so funny. So I'm rooting for that.
Well, I mean, you think they're going to get to the champion at the divisional round?
I'm sorry. Well, it goes to like 24 or whatever. I mean, like it,
if you
it
make
falls
the playoffs,
back.
it's a guaranteed top, or it's a pick from 19 to 31 this year because the Dolphins forfeited their pick.
Bring it. I also have no qualms with Dallas facing them in the NFC in the wild card round.
The Saints currently have a 2% chance of making the playoffs per 538. So they're still alive in the NFC South. If the Buccaneers win and the Saints lose, then the Saints would be officially done. I think that's what's going to happen, at least on the Saints end, in part because they're so banged up. No Chris Olave. They've been banged up all year. And not that I super believe in the Browns or anything, but I don't really believe in the Saints, and I think they lose.
2 late games this week. We'll start with the Eagles and the Cowboys. Cowboys giving 4.5 points. No Jalen Hurts in this one. You guys have given your thoughts, so I'll start first. And I just got to take issue with what was said about Gardner Minshew. I think there is evidence that he's one of the best backups in the league. The dude has 41 career touchdowns and 12 career interceptions. Like that is really, really good for your backup.
My serious question is like what of that has come as a backup quarterback? Like I'm not denying that it's true and legitimate, but like when Andy Dalton was a backup quarterback, like you could say those same things about Andy Dalton now. Like, when he's been a backup quarterback, so to speak, last year in Chicago, like he wasn't given those benefits. I mean, just
Gardner's 26.
But when has Gardner come? Like when has Gardner come off the bench, so to speak? That's my question. We have not seen that version of Gardner Minshew. That is objectively.
What do you mean?
True.
I don't understand what you mean.
Like what he's accomplished has been as the starting quarterback for the Jaguars. He
went 20 at 25 for 2 touchdowns and 0 interceptions last year as a starter.
He lost in week 18 as the starter.
Okay, he was not playing with any Eagles starters except for Jason Kelce
if we want to cherry pick one way or the other,
it's not cherry picking. He wasn't playing with any starters. And he was playing against the Cowboys starters.
I just
think so. You don't think there's a difference between the Eagles starting offensive line and their backup offensive line?
I do, but I think there's a difference in the same way. I think there's a difference between using what he accomplished as the Jaguars starting quarterback on a week-to-week basis is different than coming off the bench cold like
when
what
he
he's
was
going
in
to be doing
Jacksonville without AJ Brown and Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert and one of the best offensive lines in the league and Miles Sanders to work with.
Don't forget too, RJ, in 2019 with the Jags, he wasn't the starter. He was the backup.
He was starting halftime of week 1. I mean, he started basically every game.
Nick Sirianni as his coach.
He threw 21 touchdowns and 6 picks. Like this is a weird take from you. I do not understand this. Like, so Gardner Minshew has the ability.
We have not seen him as a backup quarterback filling in for a starter. We have not seen that.
So what?
What do you
mean?
If
he has the ability,
that this is now. That's a different
thing.
The
rules of the game don't change when you come off the bench. The field's still the same.
But we're saying he's one of the best backup quarterbacks in the league. We have not seen him exist as a backup quarterback. He was one of the.
Just did it last year. We're just going in circles at this point.
Anyways, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
So I think that there is a drop off for sure, but I don't think it's huge. Sure. The thing I wonder about, and BLG, you can speak to this more than I can. I feel like when the Eagles get in a little bit of trouble, things don't go quite their way. They get very conservative and they rely on Jalen Hurts' legs to get them through the rocky times. Obviously, they can't do that. Not that Gardner Minshew's kind of mobile, but he's not Jalen Hurts mobile. Right. So my question to you is, if this gets dicey late in the game, close game, whatever, maybe the Cowboys start to get a little momentum and the Eagles need to kind of stabilize things, what do they do?
I mean, I don't think they need that. It is a nice tool to have, but I mean, again, with the mismatch the Eagles have in the passing attack, I mean, the offense looks super efficient when Minshew was in there last year. I think by like EPA per drive or EPA per play or something, that was actually like the Eagles' most efficient performance last season when he started. And again, they're playing the Jets, so that's a big part of it. But still, there was anecdotally, you saw him, the ball, he had 5 incompletions. The ball, and like a couple, like one of those or 2 of those were like it drops. Another one might have been like a batted pass. Like he was just super efficient out there. So I trust him to be able to do that and lead this offense efficiently. Where the drop off is going to come, as you said, stats will be some of the the scrambles or like out of structure plays, some of like just incredible throw plays because he probably just doesn't have the same level of arm talent. But I think he can run an efficient offense and be a very high level game manager at worst. And I also think, again, the Mike Leach factor here is not irrelevant to me. I think he's going to be super inspired by the death of someone that meant so much to him. And Gardner Minshew, again, would not have this opportunity to play in the NFL probably
100%.
without Mike Leach in his life. And you saw Gardner Minshew last year. Viral clip after the Eagles beat the Jets. Gardner Minshew's out in the parking lot with his dad, and he's like so fired up. And I don't think that's fake. That's like real. Gardner has put a lot of work in. And I think he's done such a good job of being a good soldier this year. Last year, there was a whole story about how after the Jets game, he went into Nick Sirianni's office and he's like, what can I do to be the starter? And this year, he has purposely put himself in a situation where he was like, he doesn't want to do any media because he doesn't want to take any distraction. He doesn't want to be a distraction at all. He doesn't want to take any credit away from Jalen Hurts. He doesn't want to be in the spotlight until now when he has a huge opportunity in front of him. This is massive because he's going to be a free agent after this season. And this could be potentially his last chance ever to really make a case for himself as either, again, a full-blown starter next year, or at the very least, a guy who can be like a bridge quarterback or come in and compete somewhere. So this is a massive opportunity for him. And I just think it's to act like he's chopped liver and it's like he doesn't have a chance. I just think that would be
I don't think anybody's acting that way.
Well, the line is acting like, it's not going to be a too hard for Dallas. I mean, 4.5. I mean, it was up at 6 at one point.
That's ridiculous. Like, because the line is acting like the Cowboys are playing the Eagles with their backup quarterback. The Cowboys are a very good team. Like,
and they're at home.
The line isn't disrespectful.
The Eagles are a better team still.
That again, like you're acting like the line is disrespectful. The line is very fair with all of the context involved.
I mean, it was a little crazy to me at 6. I think 4.5 is more reasonable.
Well, it was crazy because it was volatile. I mean, like everything was changing. Like it obviously stabilized. That's why it's at 4.5 stats.
That was the first time I feel like where it was like, whoa, the gamblers know something here. Vegas knows something because all the line changes happened before we found out.
The Hurts MVP odds too shifted in a big way before. Yeah.
That I'm sure the NFL hates that, right? Because that's the thing they're trying to guard against the most. I don't know who my pick is going to be in this game. If you're Mike McCarthy, you can't come out against Houston and struggle. Now they won that game, and then you blew multiple leads against Jacksonville. Now you got Philly with their backup quarterback. You really need to stabilize things in Dallas with a win. Oh man, if you can't beat the Eagles with their backup quarterback, I would really lose faith in you. I think Dallas will win, but I'll take the points.
Of course, the hedge.
Ben, I don't understand. You kind of go. I don't know which one of you is speaking now. Go ahead, Stats.
Like what is my problem with? What is your problem with my pick?
I mean, every week it's like, Mike McCarthy, if you don't pull this off, you're the worst coach to ever live. Like, I mean, at what point? Like, I mean, does this dude get a shred of respect and credibility from you?
It's not a huge problem. It's just funny because you're not actually taking a side.
I agree with that.
Like, because RJ and I have both locked up our picks, and you just like go right down the middle, which is kind of funny.
Real quick, because I know we got to move. The big thing that you have told me about Mike McCarthy is that he has changed the culture with the Cowboys. That's what you've told me.
But
that's what you have pointed to.
There's nothing but evidence to support that.
They come out against Houston and barely win.
You
lucky
yourself
to win
20 minutes ago just acknowledged how like that is not necessarily the most infallible thing of all time.
No, I said you have
most
to ding
fallible
both.
worthy thing of all time.
I said you have to ding both teams. Yes. And then the next week after that, what did I say going into the Jags game? Well, the Cowboys just had their wake-up game.
I know, like I
there's
said,
no way they're going to come out and be bad.
If the Cowboys win, Stats will be out here like, well, of course he won. He played, the Eagles backup. Mike will really impress me if he can beat Jalen Hurts. There's nothing. Like this is your Vikings take, Stats. You just want to confirm your priors on Mike McCarthy. You're not willing to move or budge 1% on him.
You have told me that the big thing he has changed with the culture, and what's happening with the Cowboys late in the season.
Do you think he's 1% better than you did when he was hired by the Cowboys?
No.
Then I think
he's exactly the same guy.
I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Then you think
how's he done in the playoffs?
Then you think that Dak is a top 3 quarterback if he's able to carry this, what you refer to as a potato of a head coach. Like, what is it? What is the propelling factor for the Cowboys' success?
I mean, their defense.
Dak, the defense, Kellen Moore,
the defense that squandered a 17-point lead a week ago, and a 14-point fourth quarter lead against the Packers
more often than not this season. Yeah.
Right. I mean, you mean. So you're telling me the Cowboys defense stinks because of the Jacksonville game? Like, I don't know,
but I'm saying that there are multiple factors involved. We say this all the time.
Literally the number one DVOA defense.
It can be true that Mike McCarthy deserves 1% of credit. Like, this idea that he is a loser is silly.
But again, what I'm telling you is you have told me that the culture is the number one thing that he should get credit for. And I'm telling you the culture hasn't changed.
Back-to-back years for the first time in a quarter century. They're a playoff team in back-to-back years for the first time in 15 years. They're a playoff team with 3 weeks to go in the best division in the NFL. I mean, so like, at what point is it like, man, damn, that is just a little bit impressive. That moves the meter, the bare minimum on the respect meter.
This is our Christmas episode, and it's like our most contentious episode.
I mean, look, Jimmy Garoppolo looks better
than it is the Eagles win sometimes.
Oh my God.
It's true.
The obsession that Eagles fans have.
You guys are obsessed with the obsession thing. It's not
Kevin,
an obsession.
You
love that people are obsessed with you.
I know. Why do you love it? It's a rivalry.
You love being obsessed with
us. It's a rivalry. It's what makes football fun. How is that like lame? It's like you guys are so lame.
That energy is one way. Like, it's a rivalry. I have no qualms admitting that. But like this, I would never in my life be more excited about an Eagles loss than a Cowboys win.
I totally agree with you, RJ. If you get more excited about a rival loss than your own team win, I question your fandom. That's really weird to me.
Oh my God. Well, watch the Eagles game last week and then watch the Jags-Cowboys game. And also put the context in there that with the Cowboys losing, it made the Eagles need just one win in their final 3 games. Is that not exciting? Well, that wouldn't be exciting. You guys are such frauds.
No, that's exciting, but it's not.
We're not saying it's not exciting, but you're saying it's more exciting than the Eagles winning.
I'm saying the Bears game was not exciting. It was not an exciting game.
That's not what you said. You said sometimes.
Yes, I did. I literally said that. Yes, I did. I did say that in that context. Yes, I did.
Sometimes
I said
it's more exciting,
including
the Cowboys to lose
that I was
than it is
talking
the
about
Eagles
the
to win.
Bears game.
All right. I think the important thing here is that Mike McCarthy is a potato.
So
let's move on.
Hold up. I haven't offered my analysis on this game. So Brandon referenced Gardner Minshew's EPA per play from a year ago, which is suddenly relevant for whatever reason. Dak Prescott generated positive. This is a tweet from Next Gen Stats. Dak Prescott generated positive EPA on 60.6% of his dropbacks last week. His 6th game with an over 50% success rate this season. He has the highest success rate in the NFL this year, higher than Patrick Mahomes. I mean, so again, like, the Cowboys blew that game. It's embarrassing. It's frustrating. It cost them the division that they were probably not going to win anyway. But it's a weird thing. That was one of the best games that Dak Prescott has ever played for the Dallas Cowboys. He had a horrible interception. The second interception, we all know, we all understand when we're not trolling one another, was not his fault. I mean, it was a comedy of errors, of specific errors that led to their loss. They are one of the best teams in the NFL, and they are playing a team with their backup quarterback. I don't care who that team is. I mean, I expect the Cowboys to win. I expect them to cover.
Would you expect the Cowboys to win and cover against the 49ers?
With Brock Purdy?
Or Jimmy Garoppolo?
No.
Either backup quarterback.
No, the Niners live rent-free in my mind. The Eagles don't, though. So
interesting.
So
all right.
The person who clipped that clip and then wanted to play it.
I didn't clip that. Kevin clipped it. By the way, that's from the Birds versus Boys podcast. Go listen to our friends Kevin and Aiden, who were nice enough to have us on this week.
Okay. Commanders at 49ers. Kyle Shanahan facing his most hated nemesis. The Niners are favored in this game by 6.5 points, RJ.
Who is his most hated nemesis?
The Commanders. He can't stand the Commanders because they fired him and his dad.
I guess so. I mean, I never really understood that.
He doesn't like Snyder for sure,
and he hates Snyder. Oh yeah.
Well,
that's probably where a lot
he's
of
definitely alone in that capacity. I
think a lot of leaks have come from probably him over the years.
Last week's loss. Actually, stats. Brandon and I talked about this on the mixtape. Terry McLaurin, you cannot be blaming refs like that. That cannot happen. That is such big loser energy to be like, well, the ref told me this. And for context, I said the same thing about Jalen Tolbert in overtime against the Packers. You cannot blame your movement, your lack of movement, whatever, on the official. The Commanders, and I hate this take of like, oh, the refs cost them that game. They had the whole game to win that game against a team that everybody loves to dunk on, and they didn't. I will take the Niners to blast them. This is like a 50-10 win.
Yeah, I think the 49ers cover here. I mean, their defense is not something to bet against right now. And, I think Taylor Heineke is a good backup, but he is, he has his issues as a starter, and we saw some of those against the Giants. I mean, if Kayvon Thibodeau is wrecking the Commanders, then I think Nick Bosa and that San Francisco 49ers defense is going to be able to kind of wreck him as well.
And Javon
Defensive Player of the Year.
Yes, thank you very much. Javon Kinlaw is coming back for the Niners too. He hasn't played since week 3, so that's going to make their defensive front even better. But it's still Brock Purdy. And to me, he still has the potential to turn the ball over. That's the only way the Niners lose. If Brock turns it over and sets up Washington with short fields, that's the only way. Other than that, then I mean, only 2 teams all year have scored more than 17 points against the 49ers, the Chiefs and the Falcons. Everybody else, you cannot get past that.
What a weird stat.
Yeah, the 49ers have losses to the Bears and the Falcons, but those losses don't count when we hype them up.
Well, the Falcons, I mean, they had 8 defensive starters out in the Falcons game, so that's how the Falcons.
Also, the Bears game was.
So again, context can be applied to the Niners losses, but not to anybody else. Interesting.
I apply context to losses all the time.
Well, you do. I'm talking about
the Texans and Cowboys play in a rainstorm.
All right, let's not talk about the Eagles and the Cowboys anymore. I'll take the Niners. I will give the points. Saturday night, Raiders, Steelers. Steelers -2. Mike Tomlin trying to not have a losing season. BLG.
Steelers, I will take them as the favorites. I don't remember if this stat is still true. I remember Florio tweeted this or wrote an article about this a while ago. I could be wrong, so maybe this is all worthless. But I remember there's this like long-standing streak of the Raiders like not winning in Pittsburgh like for forever. And going from the coast to coast, although it's later, obviously that helps. But I will take the Steelers. Believe in them more as an organization. Last week by the Raiders was a lot of fun if you're a Raiders fan, but it also isn't like, I don't know that's a turning point to me as much as it's also just the Patriots did something incredibly stupid and you were able to take advantage. So I will take the Steelers here.
I don't think the Steelers are going to keep Mike Tomlin's 500 streak alive, but I do think they're going to win this game. The emotional element of life and football is hard to quantify. Brandon, you've talked about that with Gardner Minshew this week, obviously. The Immaculate Reception, anniversary, 50th anniversary today. Good vibes for the Steelers. Obviously tragic, that Franco Harris passed away this week. But if there's a team, I think that like just the anniversary aspect of this that like embraces like team culture and team history, it is unquestionably the Pittsburgh Steelers, and Mike Tomlin is the perfect head coach for that. I don't see a world where the Steelers lose this game and therefore don't cover.
I completely agree with all that. That's going to be a factor this week. And can I just say quickly, I've had a really fun career and I've gotten to meet a lot of Hall of Famers. I don't know that I ever met a Hall of Famer nicer than Franco Harris in my entire life. The man was just one of the nicest people I've ever met. And it was a gut punch when I woke up and saw that news, especially knowing not that it would have been that much better if he had died after the celebration, but yeah, you would have liked to see Franco on the field for that.
Along those lines, sorry, I know you've heard this a million times, but I do think like nice stories about people should be said. When the Cowboys visited the Steelers in 2016, I've told the story before. My dad and I, our seats, our tickets happened to be next to him. The person we bought them from told us like, "Oh, these are next to Franco Harris," but like, we were kind of like, "What?" Like what? But like, when we got there, people were like, "Oh yeah, Franco sits in that section." It was just a really like, "Whoa, this might be for real." And sure enough, that whole game, which I know you both remember, was a really great game. Obviously, Cowboys won. I sat between my dad and Franco Harris, and he was just the most wonderful, sweet person. Talked football with everybody, every fan, obviously Steelers fans that wanted pictures and autographs. I mean, he was just such a great ambassador for the Steelers organization. That was a really special memory for me.
And it's just funny to me too. He's just like, because he could be in a box if he really wanted to.
Yeah,
right. He's
that's
just
what I'm
sitting
saying,
among
like,
the common fans. Yeah,
a perfect Steeler all the way through. He ate French fries like from the concession stand.
Yep.
Like, you know what I mean? Like just wonderful guy.
Good taste in food also. Let's go to the Christmas Day games. 3 games on Christmas Day, and they're not really great, but the first one is okay. Packers at Dolphins. Dolphins giving 3.5 points. BLG, what are you going?
I'll take the Dolphins. I'm not buying the Packers vibe still. I know the Dolphins have struggled a bit, but they played competitively in Buffalo, so there's that. I mean, some people thought they were going to get blasted. I mean, RJ took the Bills to cover last week against the Dolphins, and the Dolphins were able to cover. I'll take the Dolphins to win here. They're fighting, in theory at least, for one of these wild card spots. They really need to stay alive in that regard. And still Tyreek Hill, still Jalen Waddle, and I like that mismatch against Rasul Douglas and the Packers secondary.
I'm taking Miami. Really bad week for Aaron Rodgers. I know that they won, but really questionable week, I guess, maybe the best way to put it, with the story that came out of The Athletic about his receivers and the hand signals, and then that kind of coming to fruition literally on Monday night. I want nothing to do with the Packers right now. Cool. You beat the Rams, like the coach that Brandon and I rightfully acknowledge is not that good. So I'll take the Dolphins. I'll lay the points. I'm excited to see Miami in the playoffs. This is the most excited I think I've ever been about the Dolphins, like in my life. They've had moments that they've been interesting, but like, it feels real. It feels like, they're here to stay for a little while.
Yeah, when they've lost 3 straight games, that's when it feels real for the Dolphins.
Do you think they're not a good team? Do you think the Dolphins are not a good team?
I don't think they're as good as we thought they were earlier in the season. I'll tell you that. I think that maybe the league has adjusted to what Miami's been doing a little bit. I mean, they lost to the 49ers. They scored 17. They lost to the Chargers. They scored 17. Then they did put up 29 against Buffalo, so that's a little bit better, but it's not like it was earlier in the year, and we have to see if Mike McDaniel can sort of counterpunch that. I do think it's going to be interesting in this game because they love to blitz. The Dolphins blitz like crazy, and if there's one thing we've seen from Christian Watson, he's fast as hell. If they try and press him at the line of scrimmage, he may get open for some deep passes. Full disclosure, I had the Packers were going to be my lock of the week when the spread was 4.5. Now that it's 3.5, I decided to change it. I think the Packers, I think this is not going to be like a walk in the park for Miami. They'll win it, but I don't think they're going to cover. I really don't.
You like that half point, don't you?
Yeah, half points matter. They put it there for a reason, right? And I will say, the Aaron Rodgers article that came out, like on the McAfee show, Pat McAfee's great, but he loses all credibility with anything related to Aaron Rodgers. He's sitting there saying, oh, it's all anonymous sources. Every person quoted in the article is named. And they're current Packers players. We're talking about like Jordan Love, like guys on the team now. And he did
apologize for that and like corrected himself the next day, just for the purposes of the whole story.
Well, then that's awesome. I did not know that. So thank you for telling me that. That's much better. But like, you kind of, when you're sitting with the guy every week, I feel like you kind of have to do that the first time around, don't you? Like, don't just pat this guy in the back.
And this is already a long episode. I thought Awful Announcing had a great write-up about this situation, like the story that was about the story, and kind of like the prism of Aaron Rodgers on Pat McAfee show. It's really great. If you want the full story detail, whatever, go to Awful Announcing and check it out.
All right, so let's keep rolling here. We've got 2 more games on Christmas. Broncos, Rams. Least interesting game. The Rams are getting only 3 points, RJ.
I'll take the Broncos. I'm sad about it. I'm sad that this game exists, so I'll take the Broncos.
Yeah, I'll take the Broncos.
I'll take the Rams. Why not? Give me Baker. Let's see some cool stuff from Baker. I'll take the Rams. Buccaneers at Cardinals. Cardinals getting 7.5 points. Trace McSorley in this one. BLG.
Yeah. Cardinals are in a bad spot. I know the Bucs haven't been trending in a right man. That's a lot of points in Arizona. I guess I'll take the points because that's 7.5 it's a lot of points. And look, this Bucs offense is not looking so hot right now. It's hard to trust the Cardinals. Hard to trust Trace McSorley. So McSorley might be able to run around a little bit though, and at very least get a garbage time touchdown. Maybe cover the spread. I'll take the Bucs to win, and which will help them. Not officially necessarily, but we'll work towards clinching the NFC South, and then I will take Bucs to win, but not to cover.
I haven't read this yet, so full context. You know how sometimes like you quote tweet something that's like, "Are you sure you don't want to read the article first?" So I haven't read this yet, but there's an ESPN story about the. I'm just looking at Jeremy Fowler's tweet. It says, "Inside the Cliff Kingsbury dynamic in Arizona, with palpable tension, with QB1 in the building, a GM with far less presence in 2022, and questions from some close to him about whether he walks away." The quote that he used to tease the story: "This is not sustainable." bad times in Arizona. You know what? The Cardinals are the Colts South. That's who they are in terms of fraudulence and incompetence. I don't like anything about them. It is a lot of points, but you could totally see Trace McSorley, who's got a really big like TikTok following, just like turning, like you talked about, turning the ball over, short field stats. Like, I'll lay the points. I feel very bad about it, but I feel less bad about this alternative.
I'll lay the points, but it's more about, I think, Trace McSorley just being bad than it is confidence in the Buccaneers. I think this is the beginning of the end. I don't think Cliff Kingsbury's back. Steve Keim's not going to be back for Arizona, and they're going to turn it over. And I don't know if Sean Payton wants that job. If he's interested, I hope not, because I don't want to see him in my division twice a year. But I think that the Kyler, Cliff, Keim triumvirate in Arizona is over after this season. They didn't release any of the terms. Remember, they signed Cliff and Steve Keim to extensions last year. They didn't release any of the terms of those. That only happens when there's things in that contract that people don't want out there. So I don't know necessarily that they're going to have to pay a ton of like dead money to those guys if they let him go. So I think it's over in Arizona. All right, Monday Night Football game, no analysis, just a pick. Chargers at the Colts, RJ.
It's
4.5, by the way. Sorry.
The Chargers will win and cover because the Colts are really bad.
Give me the Bolts
Zap!
to beat the Colts.
Why did you zap him? He was only given a pick anyway.
I didn't use it. I mean, I didn't want it to go unused.
All right.
Bolts beat Colts and cover 4.5.
Justin Herbert. I still believe in him more than anything going on with the Colts. Give me the Chargers and lay the points. That's going to do it for this edition of the SB Nation NFL show. Everybody, if you are celebrating this weekend, please have a happy holiday. BLG was wearing a Santa hat for this entire episode, which I feel like I definitely should have mentioned earlier. So that's a bad job by me. Please rate, review, and follow the SB Nation NFL show. RJ, BLG, happy holidays.
Merry
Happy
Christmas.
holidays.
Go Cowboys.